before undercutting the emotional tone with that James Gunn humor. That James Gunn humor, the out-of-place James Gunn humor, not helping anything here. There are moments where you're like, oh yeah, feeling the or, you know, a joke, sure.
The film never slows down. The pacing feels very fast. It almost feels kind of jumbled. The way it was told, it definitely feels like there was some reshoots.
There's just so much shit thrown at you in this film, so many characters that don't get the time and space they need to breathe and develop, so much world-changing technology and truncated subplots that it becomes kind of overwhelming after a while. By the time the credits rolled, I actually felt tired of it all. It's a film that never quite finds its narrative focal point, that's in such a rush to introduce so much new stuff that it ends up getting in its own way. And it doesn't help that it feels like we're dropped into a story halfway through the telling, like there should have been another movie before this one to properly introduce Superman, Lex Luthor and the Justice Gang. Instead, they're all just thrown into the mix without any explanation, like we're just expected to know who and what everyone is.
I am so confused! Before I went in to watch this movie, I watched a lot of reviews on the movie, like, I don't know, fucking 12 reviews, a lot of reviews, right? And all but one of these reviews talked about how this movie was mixed, about how it was a complete mess, about how Lois Lane and Clark Kent didn't have enough scenes together, how Superman was a bitch and getting beat up the whole movie, how all the major dramatic moments were undercut by stupid Marvel comedy. And after watching this movie, I can't help but think, like, what the fuck were y'all talking about? Where was any of this? I don't understand. I really enjoyed this movie. And it's an amazing start of the DCU. And I feel compelled to make this review not entirely a review. Well, it's a review, but it's also me just kind of being like, what the fuck were you guys talking about? You know, I kind of have to respond to all the reviewers saying all this weird shit. Because I feel like a lot of people aren't going to go out and watch this movie because of the reviews and them thinking it's a mixed bag. When the truth is, this movie is like one of the best comic book movies I've seen in quite a while. Like, it's definitely a worthy Superman movie. I think it's better than Man of Steel. And I'm actually one of the people who thinks Man of Steel is pretty okay. What I suspect happened here with the reviewers is that they went into this movie and basically didn't realize what the movie was trying to do, or didn't care about what the movie was trying to do. The movie does not follow a traditional 3-act structure with, you know, the start of the film and then the rising action, the climax, the resolution, the general accepted pace of a Hollywood movie with a 3-act structure. It's something they teach in film school, it's something they teach in writing classes, and it's something that 99.99999% of movies use. This movie does not use it. The start of the movie happens in the middle of a conflict. There are things that happen in this movie in Act 1 that feel like Act 3 events, and that's on purpose. Don't worry, there's a no spoiler review. I'm not going to go into anything in detail, but I will talk about the first scene. Mainly because you've already seen it. It's in the trailer. The dude, Superman, falls down from the ground. He hits the fucking ice. He's all bloodied up. Crypto comes. It's in the trailers. You've seen it. That scene is the opening scene of the movie, and it's in the middle of a fight. The scene continues on for him to actually go on and fight this dude and all this kind of stuff. This scene is a giant signifier to the audience of what the movie's doing, and I feel like the reviewers didn't quite get that. This is not just a Superman movie. This movie works as an introduction into the DC universe. We've seen studios try to do this in the past, and they usually do it in one of two ways. Either one, they do like a regular superhero movie following one character, and then just shove in a bunch of annoying cameos with like little wink wink nudge nudge type shit where they're like, oh hey, come watch my thing on fucking Disney Plus, or hey, here's this character for 2 seconds, I'm gonna have my own movie coming out, aren't you excited for it, blah blah blah. And they don't do anything but ruin the movie they're in. The other way they do it is they make a totally normal superhero movie, and then at the end of the movie or in an after credit scene, they'll have one scene where it's a little, nugget of what might come in the future. But that one only really works when you're trying to build a new superhero universe from scratch. This is what Marvel did. The MCU is not the comics Marvel universe. It's just Earth that then had a Marvel universe thrusted onto it in 2008 when Iron Man came out. Yes, I understand there was Steve Rogers in World War II and Carol Danvers in the 90s. I mean, I don't even count Carol Danvers because that whole movie was a fucking retcon. Nick Fury straight up says in Avengers that they were introduced to aliens when Thor crash landed on Earth. They didn't know about aliens before that, and that's what caused them to start building weapons so they can defend against possible invasions. Why would they only start building weapons now if they were actually introduced to aliens like 20 years prior when Carol Danvers came down? Retcon, terrible. We're not going to go into awful Marvel shit. Point is, this movie tried something different. It's not starting a new DC universe. It wants to establish in this film that there is a DC universe and it has existed for thousands and thousands of years. This is not just the DC universe plastered onto Earth. Superman is not the first hero that has ever existed. He just is another hero. The movie's giving you a window into the DC universe, trying to introduce you to the world through the eyes of Superman. And honestly, it's the best way that we've gotten one of these new universe introductions that I've seen so far. All of the other versions have either failed or had to massively change how that universe works. Again, like Marvel, pretending like Marvel didn't exist before 2008. The movie gives you a very strong indication throughout that there is stuff that happened before the events of this movie that you're not going to get to see. There's stuff that's going to happen from the fallout of this movie that you're not going to get to see. There are storylines that other characters in this movie are dealing with outside of Superman that you don't get to see. There's a whole scene in this film, again, no spoiler, this is in the trailer, where Superman is talking to Lois Lane, and in the background you see a bunch of superheroes fighting against some giant monster, which is a whole conflict that has absolutely nothing to do with Superman. What this movie feels like is that you just picked up a bunch of issues of a comic and read a certain section of Superman's story, and that there is another comic run out there that follows the Justice Gang that you're not currently reading, and all those moments where the Justice Gang pop into the Superman story and you see them interact, that's just like a crossover. And then when the Justice Gang leave, they're going to go back to their story, and then if you want to see their stories, you have to go read their comics. The movie feels like a comic book. It feels like a comic book run or like a run of a television show. It's actually pretty cool and does a really good job of introducing you to this world without having to restart the world from the beginning. Now, I'm aware this is a very opinionated thing, but I don't think that every movie needs to follow a 3-act structure. I don't think there needs to be an inciting incident that then snowballs into the rising action, that becomes the climax, and that becomes a resolution. I just don't think that storytelling is that fucking stringent. And this movie plays with it in ways that I don't think a lot of people have seen before, especially not in a superhero movie, and I kind of dig it. I thought it was cool. Most of the reviews that I watched were saying that every single emotional scene throughout the entire film was undercut by some stupid joke. 2 different reviewers compared this movie to Thor: Love and Thunder, and one even used an example of there being something as dumb as like a fart joke in the middle of a serious scene. What fucking movie were you guys watching? I'm so confused. Again, no spoilers, but for people who have watched the movie, no. Was the argument scene between Lois Lane and Clark Kent interrupted by a stupid jokey moment? No. Was any of the emotional scenes between Metamorpho and Superman interrupted by a joke? No. For people who've seen the trailer with the whole Lex Luthor and the pistol, where he's holding the pistol in the trailer, if you've seen the movie, you know that scene. Was that interrupted with a joke? No. There's a ton of serious scenes that are not interrupted by a joke. There's like 1 or 2 where there's like kind of lighthearted moments within the more serious scenes. There's only 1 actual serious scene that's legitimately interrupted by a joke, and that was the joke, that it was a serious scene that was interrupted, and it's only 1 time. Now, to be fair, maybe there were some weird jokes that I didn't notice because of my theater experience. I watched this movie at 1 in the afternoon. My theater only had 2 other people in it, so like every time something slightly humorous happened, I didn't have a fucking crescendo of laughter going through the entire auditorium. There was like a chuckle from a dude here or a chuckle there. That was about it. So when I was watching these serious scenes and something happened that was more lighthearted, me or one of the other 2 dudes would be like, huh, that's gonna, and then the scene would just continue, and that's fine. It wasn't like this big interrupting thing. So I guess I am aware of the possibility that if you're in a massive auditorium with hundreds of people, and then some little lighthearted moment in a serious scene happens and everyone laughs hysterically, I can get how that would be disruptive. But me watching it basically by myself without anybody else around, no, I didn't notice any goofy jokes or comedy moments within the serious scenes. Now, there is comedy in this movie, and I mean, if you didn't want comedy in the Superman movie, I don't know why. I mean, every Superman movie other than the Zack Snyder movies have comedy in them. The Richard Donner movies that everyone says is like the greatest ones ever, those are all very like goofy comedy driven movies. I don't really get why you would not want any comedy, but the idea that the comedy disrupts the emotional moments, I don't get where you guys are coming from. I've heard complaints from reviewers that this version of Superman is a bitch and he's really weak. And not only do I think that's false, but I also think it's a kind of a, like, is that even a critique? Like, does that objectively make the movie worse because a character in its power level is lower than you wanted it to be? I don't know. At that point, I feel like you're not even critiquing the movie. You're just like showing like fanboy rage. And I mean, it's fine. Obviously, like, this is all opinions and they're allowed to have that opinion. But hating on the movie because a character within the movie is less powerful than you wanted to be is just kind of a weird, like, imagine that being said said for literally any other movie that's not a superhero movie that you got annoyed the character wasn't quite as strong. I don't know. It just seems like an odd critique. But even having said that, that's not true. Throughout the entire movie, he's only beaten in a fight by one person, and when it is eventually revealed who that person is, yeah, it makes sense why he keeps getting his fucking ass kicked by this one dude. That's the only person who does it. Outside of that one person, Superman wins every single engagement that he gets involved in. So again, this is another critique I don't really understand. There are a lot of people saying that Clark and Lois, while their chemistry is really, really good, they barely have any scenes together and they need way more screen time together. And while I will admit there aren't that many scenes with them together, it's like 4, what those people failed to say is that those scenes that we get are really, really substantial. In a normal superhero movie, when you have the main superhero having a scene with his love interest, it's like 2 or 3 minutes long. No joke, the very first scene between Lois and Clark in this movie is like 10, 15 minutes long. And they talk about everything from their relationship to their ideology and how they feel about certain events that occurred before this conversation. They get a little romantic, they argue in a very long and very well done scene. This is very unusual for a superhero movie. Just a 10, 15 minute long conversation. This is some shit you would see in like Marriage Story or Closer, if you ever seen that movie with Clive Owen. It's a weird movie. His wife cheats on him and then he goes and cheats on her with this other, whatever. Closer with the Clive Owen. It's good, but it's like that kind of, they're usually hardcore dramas. But no, this is a superhero movie that is okay with slowing the pace down to the point that you can just sit back and watch a full-fledged conversation between 2 characters. Even in superhero movies with the best romantic relationships, like Tony Stark and Pepper Potts, their longest scene together is like 3 or 4 minutes. It's always quick little tidbits before we have to move on with the story. And that was another thing I kept hearing. Multiple reviewers say that the movie moves at such a fast pace and so overstuffed they can't slow the movie down to have really solid character moments. What the fuck was the 15-minute conversation between Lois and Clark? Wasn't that them slowing down to just have character moments? At the end of the day, I think this movie had 2 goals, and I think it accomplished both of them. One, introduce us to this new DC universe and get us excited about it. I think it absolutely succeeded at this. This does feel like a genuine DC universe. It does not feel like Earth that then just had a DC universe plastered over it. It feels like a completely unique universe with a completely different history than what we have in our real world. The second thing it had to do is get us attached to these characters, which I currently am. This is an amazing version of Superman, an amazing version of Lois, and an amazing version of Lex. These are solid characters. And then it has the bonus of a bunch of these other characters that I also really like and I'm interested in seeing movies of in the future. I want to see Mr. Terrific again. I want to see Guy Gardner again. I want to see Metamorpho again. Are there some characters in this movie that didn't get a whole lot of characterization? I don't really care about them that much. Yeah, I didn't really care about Hawkgirl the Engineer, and that would be a problem if this movie was called Hawkgirl or the Engineer, but it's not. It's called Superman. Who gives a shit if I didn't care about Hawkgirl and Engineer? They were introduced here. If they want to use them again in the future, they can, and we can dive more in depth of their character, or we don't. We never see them again, and either of those are fine. That was legitimate complaints that I saw about this movie, that the Engineer and Hawkgirl didn't like blow their socks off and weren't these amazing characters. Why is that a problem? When you're watching The Kingsman, right? The fucking British spy movie, and there's the chick with the 2 swords for legs and that doesn't say anything the whole movie, she's just a henchman to the bad guy. Did you like hate on that movie because the chick with the swords didn't have like a deep character or backstory? No, because she's not important. This movie's not about her. She's in it, she has a purpose, but she's basically a plot device. That's the same thing with Hawkgirl and the Engineer in this movie. It would be maddening to expect every single side character in this movie to have this super deep, complex characterization. By the end of this movie, I would like to see a Justice Gang, and if Hawkgirl shows up in that movie, I would expect her to have more character. But it's fine if she doesn't have one here. She doesn't need to. Is there some dialogue in this movie that isn't written the best? Yeah. It's here and there is. Specifically 2 scenes of egregious exposition where 2 characters literally just exposit their characterization to another character that for sure should have been implied or shown to us in a different way, not just outright stated. But that is nowhere near enough for me to call this movie a mixed bag. It's a good movie with some problems. If I had to give it between like an F and an S, it's like an A minus. It's a really good movie. I'm really hoping this is one of those movies where the critics and the audience scores are like nothing nothing alike. And even though the critics are saying like, oh, it's kind of mixed, it's like a 50% or whatever, the audience scores are like up in the 70s and 80s and shit. I think this is going to be the case. I'm not sure. It's just that if anyone was on the fence about seeing this movie and then saw the review, saw it was mixed, and then kind of lost interest, just give it a shot. I think that this is a movie that people are going to like more than reviewers do. I really do. Anyway, that's going to be all from me. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you want me to make a second video talking about all the spoilers in the movie, let me know, and I'll probably do that at some point, because there's a lot of cool stuff I could talk about and a lot of kind of stupid stuff that I could talk about. There's a couple of things in here that I think huge Superman fans might not like a whole lot. Changes in the lore and stuff, which personally didn't really bother me that much, but I can talk about all that kind of stuff in a little more length in a future video. But that's gonna be all for me. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure to like, subscribe, comment, share, and oh wait, shit, I don't have a membership on it. This is my second channel. I have a first channel. I'll put a link down below if you want to go see my other larger channel. This is my second channel, so you can check that out. I don't even have a membership on this channel yet, but this is a new channel. We're building it. We're building it. Anyway, that's all from me. Y'all stay safe out there, you hear?